Have you ever noticed that the most powerful people in the room are often the quietest? They don't reveal much. They don't try to impress. And yet, everyone feels their presence. Why? What if your greatest transformation didn't come from saying more, but from saying less? What if the true keys to outsmarting others were hidden in restraint, in silence, and in the things you deliberately choose not to share? And what if you've been told all your life that success means standing out, speaking up, and showing off, when in reality, the people who win long-term are the ones who master the art of mystery, discipline, and inner control? Welcome to a journey into the powerful world of Stoic mastery, where the loudest moves are often made in silence. In this video, we'll uncover 11 timeless Stoic keys that don't just make you appear smarter than most people. They actually restructure how you think, react, and rise above the noise. Each principle isn't just a rule, it's a strategy for personal power, emotional clarity, and unstoppable focus in a world built on distractions. Let's dive in. 1. Don't talk about challenges, the silent power within. In a world that rewards loud complaints and constant venting, there's a quiet strength that sets the Stoics apart, choosing not to talk about your challenges. It might seem counterintuitive in today's emotionally expressive culture, but the ancient Stoic wisdom teaches us a radically empowering idea. Your silence in the face of hardship is not weakness, it's power refined. Life is full of trials, some small, others soul-shaking, but Stoicism doesn't waste time debating why adversity happens. Instead, it asks, who will you become because of it? When you're hit by setbacks, whether it's a failed plan, a betrayal, or a sudden loss, your first impulse might be to reach for sympathy, to be heard and comforted. And while there's a place for connection, the Stoic path invites something far more transformative: stillness. That quiet decision not to complain, not to spiral, not to broadcast your pain for the world to see. Because true growth begins when we redirect that emotional energy inward, toward action, toward mastery, toward becoming stronger than the storm we're facing. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who led through war, plague, and personal tragedy, didn't waste breath blaming fate. Instead, he wrote to himself, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't just poetic, it's a blueprint for power. Challenges aren't curses, they're assignments. When life feels unfair, the Stoic doesn't whine, he sharpens. She doesn't retreat, she rebuilds. The modern mind is conditioned to share every discomfort, every inconvenience, as though voicing it makes it disappear. But the truth is, repetition amplifies suffering. The more you speak of your pain, the more you embed it into your identity. That hard project at work? Complaining won't complete it. That tough breakup? Rehashing it endlessly won't mend your heart. Instead, the Stoic shifts focus. What can I do now? What can I build from this? There's tremendous clarity in silence. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of presence, of choosing action over explanation. You start seeing the challenge not as a punishment, but as a test, and more than that, as a gift. When you stop talking about how hard it is, and begin doing something about it, your mind transforms. Each step you take forward, without needing applause or validation, becomes a declaration of strength. You become your own anchor, your own healer, and ironically, that's when others begin to notice. Not because you asked for attention, but because your quiet resilience speaks louder than any cry for sympathy. Imagine someone close to you who's always in crisis mode. Every conversation is a storm report. What went wrong? Who hurt them? What they're tired of? Now contrast that with someone who endures in silence. Who shows up, gets things done, and keeps moving with grace. Who do you admire more? Stoicism teaches that composure is not passive, it's disciplined power. And when practiced consistently, it becomes magnetic. When you stop talking about your battles and begin embodying your strength, you shift from victim to victor. This isn't about hiding your feelings or bottling pain. It's about transmuting it. It's the art of turning adversity into fuel. Every person faces chaos at some point, but very few choose to stand tall in the middle of it without crying out for the world to look. Those who do, those who quietly conquer what others fear, become unshakable. They radiate a kind of peace that cannot be faked. That's the Stoic edge. So next time life tests you, don't announce the storm. Anchor yourself instead. Hold your posture. Move with purpose. Let your results whisper the story you once felt like shouting. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's focus. It's your sacred space to become something greater than what tried to break you. 2. Don't reveal your secrets, the art of sacred silence. In a world addicted to oversharing, where every thought, feeling, and detail is posted for likes and validation, keeping a part of yourself hidden has become a radical act of self-respect. The Stoics understood something that modern society often forgets. Not everything needs to be said. Not every truth deserves to be exposed. Not every secret should be handed out like candy. Your inner world, your dreams, fears, doubts, and private reflections is sacred territory. And the more you share it carelessly, the more power you hand over to people who haven't earned the right to hold it. When you reveal too much, you expose the softest parts of yourself, the wounds not yet healed, the hopes still in their fragile infancy. And while the desire to connect and be understood is deeply human, it comes with risk. Not everyone listens to support. Some listen to gather ammunition. Some smile while you speak, but use your honesty as leverage later. Stoic wisdom tells us that discretion isn't coldness, it's protection. It's not about being secretive for the sake of mystery, but about being deliberate with who gains access to your soul. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, put it simply: if you want to keep a secret, keep it to yourself. Why? Because the moment your deepest truths leave your lips, they enter a world beyond your control. Words can't be unsaid, and while vulnerability has its place, it must be offered with precision, not recklessness. Sharing your secrets should never be a casual act. It should be an intentional gift given to someone who has shown they can carry it with care. Think of your personal truths like precious stones. Do you throw diamonds into the crowd, hoping someone kind will catch them? Or do you place them carefully into the hands of those who have proven they won't crush them? When you reveal too much to the wrong people, you hand them the blueprint to your emotional architecture. And if their intentions are impure, they now know exactly where your walls are weak. The Stoic doesn't fear intimacy, but they earn it slowly. Trust is not given, it's built, tested, and solidified over time. There is strength in restraint. In a noisy world, the one who speaks less often commands the most attention. The one who holds back, who chooses silence over spectacle, who knows how to guard what matters, this person radiates power. It's not just about privacy, it's about control. The more you contain, the more grounded you become. When others guess what you're thinking but never quite know, you remain unshakable. You protect your momentum. You protect your peace. There will be moments when you feel tempted to pour your heart out, to explain your pain, to justify your actions, to share your plans. But take a breath. Ask yourself, is this the right person? Is this the right time? Will this share empower me? Or will it drain me? Too often, we speak to fill the silence, not realizing that silence itself is often our safest place. And here's something crucial to remember. Keeping things to yourself doesn't mean you're hiding. It means you're honoring your process. It means you're giving yourself the space to evolve without the weight of external judgment. Dreams, when still forming, are vulnerable to the winds of doubt. Confide them too soon, and someone's cynicism might plant seeds of hesitation. But when you nurture them in solitude, when you protect them like a flame in the wind, they grow stronger until they're ready to burn bright on their own. This practice of keeping your secrets isn't about distrust, it's about discernment. It teaches you patience, builds emotional intelligence, and allows you to develop the kind of quiet strength that Stoics lived by. You stop needing constant reassurance or feedback. You trust your own instincts, your own wisdom, your own inner compass. And when the time comes to speak, when you've built the right relationship, the right moment, the right foundation, your words will land with greater force, greater meaning, greater respect. Until then, let your silence protect your spirit. Let your privacy be your power. Speak not to be heard, but only when your words serve your growth. That's the Stoic art of sacred silence. That's the wisdom that keeps your heart safe, your mind sharp, and your life truly your own. 3. Don't talk about your achievements. Humility is strength. There's a kind of power that doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself with flashy headlines, humble brags, or carefully filtered success stories. It doesn't need to, because real achievement doesn't live in applause, it lives in character. In a world obsessed with recognition, the Stoics challenge us to embrace something deeper, the silent confidence of humility. You see, bragging about your wins is easy. It's tempting, it feeds the ego. But ego is fragile, and it demands constant maintenance. Every time you boast, you bind your worth to how others respond. You give away your power, inch by inch, in exchange for fleeting approval. Stoicism offers a sharper path, one rooted not in proving, but in becoming. When you do great work, let it speak. When you accomplish something meaningful, let your presence reflect it, not your voice. Think of a mountain. It doesn't shout to remind you of its height. It just stands, solid, timeless, unmoved. That's what the Stoic cultivates. Quiet strength, endurance, consistency. Because the deeper the roots, the less you need to wave the branches. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, didn't write to the world about his conquests. He wrote to himself, journaling in private, reminding his own mind to stay grounded and resist vanity. Don't explain your philosophy, he said, embody it. Your actions are the only explanation you need. People will notice, maybe not today, maybe not in the way you hoped, but over time, consistency shines. Humility doesn't mean hiding your light. It means trusting that your light doesn't need a spotlight. It glows on its own. And more importantly, it lasts. Because success built on self-promotion is fragile. It sways with public opinion, crumbles under envy, and fades when the applause stops. But success rooted in humility grows stronger over time. It compounds, quietly, unshakably. Now picture someone who's always broadcasting their wins. Their tone changes. Their focus shifts from the work itself to how the work makes them look. And little by little, their edge dulls. Their hunger fades. They become more interested in applause than progress, more driven by image than impact. Stoicism warns us about this trap. When you talk too much about what you've done, you risk stopping where you are. Complacency is the enemy of greatness. Instead, fall in love with the process. Celebrate in silence. Keep showing up, not to impress, but to evolve. Let your passion speak through your discipline. Let your success be felt, not flaunted. The moment you stop needing to announce it is the moment it becomes real. Because true greatness doesn't need validation, it needs repetition. It's not built in public, it's forged in quiet hours. When no one's watching, when no one's clapping, humility is magnetic. It earns trust. It draws in those who respect substance over spectacle. When you move through life without needing to prove yourself, you become untouchable. You're no longer trapped in the exhausting cycle of performance and approval. You move freely, focused, fulfilled, and ironically, that's when people start paying attention, not to your words, but to your presence, your work ethic, your results. That's the kind of reputation that can't be fabricated. That's the legacy the Stoics built. So keep building, keep rising, but let the world find out when it's undeniable, not because you announced it, but because you lived it. Let humility be your power. Let your silence echo louder than any shout. And above all, let your life speak. 4. Keep your next move a mystery. Silent strategy is unstoppable. There's a quiet force that moves behind the curtain, calm, focused, deliberate. It doesn't announce its goals. It doesn't seek validation. It simply acts. That's the Stoic way. In a world that constantly pressures you to put it out there, to declare your dreams out loud for accountability or attention, there's something undeniably powerful about holding back. Keeping your next move a mystery isn't about secrecy, it's about strategy. It's about guarding your momentum and protecting your vision from the noise of premature opinions, doubts, and distractions. You're not hiding, you're building in peace, away from the chaos that can derail your progress before it ever sees the light. Every time you tell someone what you're planning to do, before you've taken real steps, you open the door to influence. Maybe they give you advice that plants fear. Maybe they don't believe in you. Maybe their doubt becomes your hesitation. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed the future is fragile, still in motion, and deserves protection. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Not what others think you should do. Not what the crowd expects. Just you and the mission, nothing extra. Nothing exposed. Think about how powerful you become when no one knows what's coming. There's no pressure to perform. No need to explain yourself. You're free to experiment, to pivot, to fail and adjust without judgment. You stay focused on the process, not the performance. And that's where the real transformation happens, in silence. When nobody is watching, when no spotlight blinds your clarity. When your only competition is the version of yourself from yesterday. Every plan has its vulnerable phase, the point where it's still raw, still shaping, Talking too much during this stage can turn your fire into smoke. The more you explain, the more energy you waste. The more you reveal, the more others can weigh in, slow you down, or consciously or unconsciously undermine you. Not everyone around you wants you to win. Some want you comfortable, predictable, unchanged. But the Stoic knows your future doesn't need approval. It needs discipline. Imagine working on something that lights your soul on fire, a business idea, a fitness goal, a life shift. Now imagine telling everyone, posting about it, hearing a flood of reactions, both good and bad. The praise might feel good, but it tricks your brain into thinking you've already achieved something. The criticism might sting, planting seeds of self-doubt. Either way, you've let the outside world in too soon. And now your energy is split between building and proving. That's a dangerous place to be. But when you move in silence, you conserve your strength, you control your narrative, you act without explanation and let results speak when the time is right. This doesn't mean you walk alone or never ask for support, it means you're selective. You share your plans with people who've earned your trust, who can hold your vision with care, not with curiosity or critique. The Stoic doesn't isolate, they protect what matters until it's ready. Keeping your next move private also builds self-reliance. When you stop depending on the opinions of others to fuel your ambition, you start listening to your inner compass. You make choices from alignment, not approval. You stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, does this serve my purpose? That kind of clarity is rare. That kind of focus is dangerous, in the best way possible. And here's the most beautiful part. When you finally do reveal what you've built, it speaks for itself. No explanations needed, no defenses. Just undeniable proof of quiet work, quiet growth, and quiet resilience. That's the Stoic advantage. You're not trying to impress. You're not chasing attention. You're creating a legacy that doesn't need hype, only consistency. So guard your dreams. Keep your next step between you and your purpose. Move with intention, not impulse. And let them wonder. Let them guess. Let your silence build the kind of life that doesn't need to be announced, it needs to be experienced. That's the strength of stillness. That's the strategy of the Stoic. And that's how mystery becomes momentum. 5. Don't talk about others. Focus is power. In a world constantly buzzing with gossip, judgment, and endless commentary, staying silent about others is not just rare, it's revolutionary. Stoicism reminds us that talking about other people, especially in ways that diminish them, doesn't elevate you, it weakens you. Every moment spent criticizing someone else is a moment stolen from your own growth. It's borrowed time, time that could be used to sharpen your mind, deepen your discipline, or build your future. When you engage in gossip, you trade strength for noise. You abandon the high ground for cheap entertainment. And you begin to tether your self-worth to the flaws, mistakes, and failures of people who aren't even part of your mission. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the Roman Empire, could have spoken endlessly about the faults of his rivals. Instead, he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's not just philosophy, it's a challenge, a call to action. Because when you talk about others, you feed distraction. But when you turn your gaze inward, everything changes. You start to see where your real work lies, not in fixing others, but in refining yourself, not in measuring someone else's choices. but in mastering your own. Think about the energy it takes to gossip, to judge, to vent about people who may never change. It's exhausting, and it does nothing to move you forward. It traps you in a loop of negativity. But when you refuse to speak on someone else's life, you break free. You reclaim your time, your peace, and your power. You become someone who radiates presence instead of pettiness, integrity instead of interference. And that energy? People feel it. They may not know why, but they trust you more, respect you more, because you're not wasting breath tearing others down. You're too focused on building something of your own. It's not about pretending people don't make mistakes. It's about choosing your battles. It's about asking yourself, is this conversation helping me grow? Or is it pulling me into a storm that doesn't belong to me? Most of the time, the answer is clear. Silence becomes your sword, not because you're afraid to speak, but because you've chosen something better to say. Growth, vision, mastery. There's also something deeply liberating about letting people be who they are without commentary. You stop trying to control what doesn't belong to you. You free yourself from the emotional weight of other people's choices. And suddenly, your mental space expands, your peace returns, your goals become sharper. When you don't concern yourself with who did what, or who said what about whom, you gain clarity, and in clarity, there is power. This doesn't mean turning a blind eye to injustice or being passive. It means being intentional. It means knowing the difference between righteous action and unnecessary opinion. The world doesn't need more critics. It needs creators. It needs people who are so dialed into their own path. They don't have time to speak on others. They're too busy becoming someone worth becoming. Imagine the kind of atmosphere you create when you refuse to speak ill of others. At work, in your family, online, you become a source of trust, a safe space in a world full of judgment. And slowly, your environment shifts. People mirror what you model. Gossip dies in your presence. Negativity fades when it's met with silence. The ripple effect is real. And it all begins with a simple choice. Don't speak on what's not yours to carry. Let your focus become your filter. Let your energy speak louder than your opinions. And remember, every word you choose either builds your character or chips away at it. Choose words that reflect who you're becoming, not who you're criticizing, because at the end of the day, the strongest person in the room isn't the one pointing fingers, it's the one building in silence. That's Stoic power. That's how you rise. That's how you lead. 6. Don't talk about your good deeds. Kindness needs no spotlight. There's a unique kind of purity in doing something good and telling no one. In a world driven by recognition, where even generosity has become content, true virtue now lives in the quiet. Stoicism teaches us that the highest form of goodness is the one that seeks no credit. It simply acts without applause, without hashtags, without expectation, because real kindness doesn't demand a stage. It doesn't whisper, "Look at me." It whispers only to the soul it touches, and that's enough. When you help someone and then immediately share it with the world, you dilute the essence of the act. You turn it from selfless to strategic, from pure to performative, and while your intentions may still be noble, the magic begins to fade the moment you seek praise for what should have been sacred. Seneca, one of the great Stoic voices, said, "The reward for a good deed is to have done it." Let that sink in. The act itself is the reward. The feeling of alignment, of knowing you've lifted someone up, is more valuable than any compliment you could ever receive. That internal peace, that deep sense of contribution, is a treasure far greater than public recognition, because applause fades, but inner integrity, that lasts. When you broadcast your good deeds, you also risk something even more dangerous, pride. Slowly, without realizing it, your actions stop being about impact and start being about image. You become addicted to how others perceive your kindness rather than how deeply that kindness actually reached someone. Stoicism challenges you to flip the script, to stop asking who saw your generosity and start asking who felt it. Not everyone needs to know. In fact, the fewer people who do, the more powerful it becomes. Think of a tree that bears fruit quietly in the forest. It doesn't shout about its harvest. It simply nourishes. The animals come. The wind carries seeds. Life expands, without a single word. That's the Stoic way. Silent, consistent, humble service. No banners. No billboards. Just impact. When you begin to live this way, something beautiful happens. You become free. Free from needing praise. Free from measuring your goodness by likes or shares. Free to give without needing to get anything in return. That freedom unlocks deeper generosity. You don't perform kindness, you become kindness. And that's the difference. When your motivation is internal, rooted in purpose rather than popularity, your actions carry a different weight. They echo further. They heal more deeply. Because they're not filtered through ego, they're powered by compassion. It's not about being seen as good. It's about being good, even when no one's looking. In today's hyper-connected world, the temptation to share every kind act is real. But ask yourself, is this about inspiring others? Or is it about reminding them of my virtue? Most of the time, the answer reveals itself in the silence between intentions. And if you truly want to inspire, let your life be the proof. Let people feel your impact, not hear about it. Let your consistency speak louder than any caption ever could. Even more powerful is the ripple effect of hidden kindness. The stranger you helped might never know your name. The friend you supported silently might never understand the weight you lifted. But that's not the point. You didn't do it for the return. You did it because it aligned with your values. Because it reminded you of who you are when no one's watching. That's the soul of Stoic virtue. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's not transactional. It's rooted, deep, unshakable. Let your good deeds remain unspoken when possible. Let them exist in the quiet space between intention and action. That space is where your character is forged, where your soul remembers what truly matters. Not approval, not credit, just doing the right thing because it's the right thing. That's the Stoic legacy. That's where real power lives. And that's how you carry goodness without ever needing to prove it. 7. Don't speak of your weaknesses, shield your vulnerabilities with inner strength. There's a quiet kind of wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. In today's age of raw confessions, viral vulnerability, and oversharing disguised as authenticity, Stoicism offers a powerful reminder. Your weaknesses are not for public consumption. Not because you're ashamed, not because you're hiding, but because strength begins where noise ends. When you expose your deepest struggles too freely, you invite the world into a place they haven't earned the right to enter. And not everyone who listens comes with compassion. Some come with judgment, some come with intent, and some come simply to exploit what you've made visible. The Stoic doesn't pretend to be invincible. but they understand the value of fortifying the mind before displaying the wound. To share a weakness before you've understood it, before you've begun the slow process of healing or mastering it, is like walking into battle without armor. You think you're being brave, but what you're really doing is surrendering your defenses. Seneca once said, "The man who reveals his weakness is like a city without walls." Let that image settle, because walls aren't built to keep others out. They're built to protect what's still being repaired inside. This isn't a call to bottle up your emotions. It's an invitation to treat them with respect, to recognize that your struggles are sacred work, not social currency. Not everything you wrestle with needs a spotlight. Some battles are meant to be fought in the dark, where your soul sharpens. Away from opinions, labels, and unsolicited advice, when you speak less about your pain and focus more on your transformation. You shift from victimhood to power. You stop identifying with your flaws and start working on them, quietly, relentlessly. And when the world sees you again, they don't see your wounds. They see your evolution, because healing isn't loud, growth isn't loud, mastery isn't loud. It's a disciplined silence, a focused rebuilding. It's you, waking up day after day, refusing to let your limitations define your destiny. And every time you choose to improve instead of complain, to reflect instead of overshare, you regain control. You create space for clarity. You stop feeding the part of you that seeks validation for suffering. And instead, you nourish the part that seeks liberation through strength. Not everyone deserves access to your inner landscape. Not everyone has the emotional maturity to understand where you're fragile. And more often than not, when you expose too much, you lose something vital, your sense of control. Stoicism teaches that power begins with self-containment. When you master the art of quiet progress, you become a force, untouchable, unpredictable, unshaken. Even more than that, you become trustworthy, not only to others, but to yourself. Because when you stop needing to announce where you're broken, you begin to repair from within. You prove to yourself that you're capable, that you're resilient, that your past doesn't need an audience to become meaningful. It needs movement. It needs transformation. It needs a sacred space to breathe and build. This doesn't mean you walk alone. It means you walk wisely. You choose carefully whom you let in. You share your truth with those who've earned it, not through empty sympathy, but through respect, loyalty, and presence. Until then, you carry your struggles with silence, and your progress with pride. And in doing that, you step into a new identity, not defined by weakness, but shaped by the quiet strength of someone who refused to crumble. Let the world underestimate you. Let them assume you're calm as ease. What they don't see is the war you've already won in private. The inner battles you've faced without applause. The emotional storms you've weathered without posting a single word. That's the Stoic shield. That's where real strength lives. And that's how you rise, calm, grounded, and untouchable. 8. Keep your dreams secret. Nurture your vision in sacred silence. Your dreams are sacred. They are the raw, beating pulse of who you might become, whispering to you in quiet hours when the world isn't watching. And yet, the moment you speak them out loud, too early, too freely, you risk piercing their fragile skin. Stoicism teaches us that not every spark needs to be shared. Some of them must be protected, shielded from the winds of doubt, jealousy, and noise, because dreams, like seeds, grow best underground, away from harsh opinions. unsolicited advice, and the toxic glow of instant gratification. When you talk about your dreams too soon, you invite interference. People will project their fears onto your hopes. They'll warn you of risks you've already calculated. They'll ask questions that shake your belief. Even their silence can plant seeds of second guessing. Not because they want to hurt you, but because most people are trapped in the smallness of their own limitations, and when you speak of something bold, it unsettles them. That's why Stoic wisdom tells us to protect the fire before it becomes a flame. To give it warmth, not attention. To focus on the doing, not the declaring. When your vision is still forming, it's at its most vulnerable. That dream of starting something new, of changing your life, of breaking free from patterns, that's your personal revolution. It doesn't need applause. It needs silence, solitude, and sacred discipline, because what you build in private becomes unshakable in public. When you keep your dreams to yourself, something powerful happens. Your motivation becomes yours again, not fueled by compliments, not shaken by criticism, just pure, burning clarity. Most people don't realize this, but the moment you speak your goal out loud, your brain rewards you. You feel like you've already achieved something, even if you haven't lifted a finger. That illusion of progress can be fatal. It slows your urgency. It replaces your hunger with comfort. But when you hold your vision close and let it push you in silence, you stay sharp. You stay hungry. You move forward, not to impress, but to fulfill. There's a kind of magic in walking quietly with your dream. You're not explaining yourself. You're not defending your direction. You're simply becoming. And that inner transformation is where the true work is done. Great achievements are often born in invisible places, early mornings, lonely nights, moments of doubt and fierce determination. None of that needs a witness. What it needs is your full attention, your full belief, your full presence. And as your dream grows, it will start to show. People will feel it in your focus, your habits, your energy. They'll notice the shift, even if they don't know what's causing it. You won't need to tell them. The results will speak in a language far more powerful than any premature announcement ever could. That's the essence of Stoic creation. Do the work, carry the vision, let the outcome speak when it's undeniable. There will be moments when you feel the urge to share, to be understood, to gain support, but ask yourself, am I sharing because it helps the dream? Or because it feeds the ego? Real strength is choosing silence when noise is tempting. Real maturity is trusting yourself enough to walk quietly while others shout their plans from rooftops. Let them talk, let them post. You're not building a brand, you're building a life. And when the time comes, when the roots are deep and the structure is strong, then let the world see. Not because you owe them an explanation, but because what you've built is now too powerful to be hidden. That is the reward of sacred patience, of hidden growth, of becoming in silence. Protect your dream like a fire in the wind. Guard it until it burns bright enough to light the sky. Until then, let it live in you, fuel you, shape you. Keep it secret, keep it strong, and let your silence be the soil where something extraordinary takes root. That's not just stoicism, that's how legends begin. 9. Embrace solitude. Honor the power of being alone. In a world addicted to constant connection, the ability to embrace solitude has become a superpower. Most people run from silence. They see stillness as a void to be filled, a weakness to be fixed. But the Stoics saw it differently. Solitude isn't emptiness. It's sacred space. It's not loneliness, it's liberation. It's where you meet the truest version of yourself. Without masks, noise, or distractions. When you're alone, no one's watching, no one's expecting, and in that rare freedom, something profound happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. Most of us are so consumed with reacting, replying, scrolling, performing, that we forget what it feels like to just be. To sit with our thoughts, to walk without a destination, to reflect without needing to explain. And yet, that's where clarity is born. In the silence, your priorities reorder themselves. Your intuition sharpens. Your mind, scattered by the chaos of everyday life, starts to settle, like muddy water left untouched. It clears. That's the gift of solitude. It brings you back to yourself. The Stoic masters understood this. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. Yet he carved out quiet hours just to think, to write, to reflect. Seneca reminded us that being alone with one's mind is not a punishment, it's a privilege. Because when you're alone, you're finally in a space where no one else's opinions interfere. You don't have to perform. You're not being judged. There's nothing to prove, just you, and the mirror of your inner world. It's here that you confront your fears, your doubts, your truths, and it's here that you find your strength. The world will try to convince you that isolation is something to escape. That if you're not surrounded by people, you're missing out. But solitude is not the absence of life, it's the birthplace of presence. It's the soil where your ideas take root, where your creativity stretches out without limits. The greatest works of art, the most powerful breakthroughs, the deepest realizations, they rarely happen in the middle of a crowd. They happen in the quiet, in the stillness, in the moments no one else sees. Treat your solitude like a sanctuary, a sacred ground where your spirit can rest, reset, and rise. Protect it fiercely. Turn off the noise. Step away from the feed. Let your mind breathe without interruption. This isn't about escaping others. It's about reconnecting with yourself. It's about building the kind of self-awareness that can't be taught in conversation, only discovered in silence. And when you make solitude a habit, something shifts inside you. You begin to walk into the world with more certainty, more calm. You're no longer rattled by opinions, because you've spent time anchoring into your own truth. You're no longer desperate for company, because you've learned how to be whole without it. You become magnetic, not because you seek attention, but because you radiate something rare: peace, depth, presence. There's nothing soft about solitude. It's not a retreat, it's a return to wisdom, to clarity, to power. It takes strength to face yourself. It takes courage to sit in silence. But that's exactly where the Stoic thrives. Not in the crowd, not in the noise, but in the quiet, where truth echoes louder than applause. So give yourself permission to be alone, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Walk in nature with no destination. Sit in your room without music or distraction. Let your thoughts rise. Let them pass. Listen to what remains. That is your compass. That is your power. Embrace solitude not as a punishment, but as a profound privilege. Guard it, cherish it, and watch as it transforms your life from the inside out. Because when you learn to enjoy your own company, you'll never feel lost in this world again. That is Stoic strength. That is inner freedom. And that is where greatness begins. 10. Don't explain yourself too much. Let your life do the talking. There comes a moment when you realize that no amount of explaining will ever convince someone who's already decided to misunderstand you. And in that moment, you face a choice: keep talking, keep defending, keep chasing approval, or let go and walk forward with silent conviction. The Stoics understood this truth long before the noise of modern life made everyone desperate to be understood. They taught that your value doesn't live in your words. It lives in how you move, how you carry yourself, how you show up when no one's clapping and the crowd isn't listening. True confidence doesn't argue. It acts. It doesn't prove. It becomes. There's a certain peace that rises when you stop trying to justify yourself to people who aren't even listening. You begin to see clearly that your energy is better spent building than explaining. The more you talk about your intentions, the more you dilute the impact of your actions. And when you explain too much, it often signals one thing: you're seeking permission. You're hoping to be validated before taking your next step. But the Stoic doesn't wait for approval. The Stoic acts in alignment with principle and lets the outcome speak for itself. People will misunderstand you. They will misread your silence, your choices, your growth. Some will assume you've changed for the worse. Others will say you're being cold, distant, arrogant. But that's not your problem to solve. Your task is not to tailor your life to fit someone else's narrative. Your task is to live with clarity and let that be your explanation. Let your work speak. Let your results echo. Let your character become the loudest answer to every doubt thrown your way. The moment you stop over-explaining, something shifts. You start choosing peace over performance. You realize that you don't owe everyone access to your process. And that silence, when rooted in strength, is louder than any defense you could ever mount. Those who truly know your heart don't need explanations. They've watched you. They've felt your integrity. They believe not because you persuaded them, but because your presence is consistent. And those who want to twist your story will always find a way. No matter what you say. Stoicism invites us to stop reacting to every misjudgment, to stop throwing our truth into every storm, hoping it will calm the wind. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people think what they want and keep walking anyway. Not out of pride, but out of wisdom. Because when you waste time defending yourself, you delay your mission. And every moment spent in defense is a moment stolen from progress. It takes courage to be misunderstood, to be silent when you're wrongly judged, to hold your ground when the world demands a speech. But that courage, that refusal to beg for approval, is where your true power lies. The Stoic doesn't need to be liked. They need to be real, aligned, clear. And that clarity doesn't come from explaining. It comes from doing. You are not required to unpack your every move. You are not obligated to justify your boundaries. You are not responsible for managing other people's assumptions. What you are responsible for is your own peace, your own growth, your own integrity. When you shift from proving to embodying, you level up in a way that words could never achieve. Let them doubt. Let them wonder. Let them talk. You're not here to satisfy every opinion. You're here to fulfill your potential. And that path often requires you to walk quietly, deliberately, with your head high and your voice steady, not because you shouted over the noise, but because you never needed to. That's Stoic wisdom in action. That's how you move when you trust yourself more than you fear being misunderstood. That's when your life becomes your loudest statement. And the world eventually listens, not because you explained, but because you became undeniable. 11. Master your emotions, control your mind. Control your life. There's a storm inside every one of us. Waves of anger, joy, fear, jealousy, excitement, and sorrow crashing against the edges of our reason. Most people are tossed around by those waves, reacting, lashing out, collapsing, or chasing the next emotional high. But the Stoic walks differently. Not by suppressing emotion, but by understanding it. Not by pretending to be cold or distant, but by refusing to let emotions make the final decision. Mastery isn't about being numb. It's about being unshakable. It's about standing still in the middle of the storm and not losing yourself to the chaos. Stoicism doesn't ask you to deny your humanity. It demands you elevate it. Feel the rage, but don't become the rage. Feel the fear, but don't surrender to it. Let the emotions pass through you, not overtake you. When you learn to observe rather than obey your feelings, something shifts. You step into a rare kind of power, calm, focused, and resilient. Because raw emotion is energy. And energy, when directed, becomes fuel, but when left untamed, it becomes fire with no aim. The person who cannot control their temper will be a slave to every insult. The person who cannot tame their fear will shrink from every challenge. And the person who gets lost in temporary pleasure will never build lasting success. The Stoic doesn't fight emotion. They study it. They ask, where is this coming from? Is this true? Is this useful? In that pause, in that breath, lies the entire battlefield. Most people react in milliseconds. The Stoic responds after reflection. And that pause? That's where freedom lives. When you control your emotions, you stop being a puppet pulled by strings you don't see. You stop handing over your peace to other people's actions. You stop giving your energy to things that don't matter. And you begin to own your life in a way that most never will. Imagine being able to stay composed when others lose their heads. Imagine walking into conflict and keeping your clarity. Imagine the power of not being triggered, of not being baited, of not letting your peace be stolen just because someone else decided to lose theirs. That's not weakness, that's discipline. That's wisdom wrapped in silence. That's Stoicism at work. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean you never feel. It means you're the one at the wheel, not the passenger. It means you can feel everything deeply and still choose your actions with intention. It means you don't sabotage your future for the sake of a reaction in the present. When someone attacks you, you don't need to retaliate. When life throws chaos your way, you don't spiral. You breathe. You ground. You respond. That is strength. That is emotional mastery. And here's the truth. People will try to provoke you. Life will test you. Circumstances will press every emotional button you have. The world will try to pull you in every direction. But when you've trained your mind to remain steady, none of it can shake your foundation. You begin to move through life with quiet confidence, unbothered by drama, untouched by gossip, uninterested in battles that don't serve your purpose. You conserve your energy for what matters. You protect your spirit from emotional pollution. And in doing that, you become something rare, a person with presence, with gravity, with inner fire that doesn't burn others, but fuels vision, wisdom, and impact. That's what Stoicism gives you. The tools not to escape emotion, but to rule over it. Not to hide your passion, but to refine it. Every moment you choose awareness over reaction. You sharpen your edge. Every time you refuse to be dragged down by temporary emotion. You build something permanent: self-control, self-respect, self-mastery. Let others be loud with their feelings. Let the world scream and spin. You remain grounded, steady, composed, because you've learned the ultimate truth. A person who masters their emotions becomes the master of their reality. And that, more than anything else, is what makes you unstoppable. In a world obsessed with being loud, being seen, and being first, the Stoic path teaches us a quieter, more powerful truth. The strongest move is often the silent one. You don't need to announce your plans, expose your battles, or seek applause for your kindness. The wisest people let their actions whisper, their silence echo, and their presence speak for itself. These 11 Stoic keys aren't just habits, they are weapons for clarity in chaos, anchors for your emotions, and blueprints for unshakable strength. When you stop explaining yourself to those who don't deserve an explanation, when you choose solitude to sharpen your mind, when you master your emotions rather than serve them, you rise above the noise. You become untouchable. You stop performing and start evolving. And here's the most empowering truth: everything you need to lead, to win, to thrive, already lives within you. You just have to remove the distractions, the need to be seen, the impulse to react, and return to what matters: discipline, purpose, and peace. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, give this video a thumbs up to support the channel. Share it with someone who's ready to stop talking and start mastering. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're just getting started. More wisdom, more power, more clarity, delivered straight to you. This isn't motivation. This is your reminder. Stillness is strength. Silence is strategy. Mastery is the mission. Keep going, stay sharp, and keep living like a Stoic.